Hello, I hope everyone's doing well. I just wanted to take this opportunity because something we're doing a lot of, one thing I want to help my team with, but I'm also interested in sharing with the broader community, is taking a closer look at XPaths, really. I think, at least to some extent, they're not utilized to the full extent that they can be, and I've only personally recently figured out the fullest extent that they really can be utilized, so I did want to share some ideas, some ways I think they could be utilized in an effective manner to help for SEO analysis in particular. So what I'm going to do during this demo is that I'm actually going to crawl Screaming Frog. Funny enough, I'm going to actually crawl the Screaming Frog site. And what I'm going to try to figure out is I'm going to try to figure out, one, which pages are actually blogs, because they do not write this page is a blog. They don't put blog. They don't have a subfolder blog in their URL structure, nor do they have anything else that indicates blog by the look of it, at least. Secondarily, a really big thing that we talk about a lot is how much content is specifically within the main content. Why I say specifically is because out of the box, if you use a tool like Screaming Frog, you're actually getting a word count, but what that is actually showing you is every word that exists on the page. Your main nav, your footer nav, your left nav, your right nav, any kind of content. And really what we want to be focused on is that content that's really in the body of the page, the stuff that really satisfies the intent of our users. So I recently, actually a few days ago, figured out how to do this at a bit more scale. My old process was to custom extract a page's text, then use a formula in Excel to actually count the text itself. It worked fine. It's not like that was the end of the world. It was one extra step, but I did find this new process. I think it's really interesting. I'm hoping everyone else does as well. I'll try to keep this to as little jargon as possible, try to make it as easy as possible to understand. So let's hop into it. So I've already gone ahead. I went into SEMrush. I just went to here. I pulled the pages report from SEMrush, trying to just get a list of pages. And the first thing I'm gonna want to do is I'm gonna want to find at least one page that matches the criteria of what I'm trying to find here. So I don't know, maybe robots.txt tester, crawl JavaScript SEO. That sounds like it's certainly a blog post. I don't know, I haven't looked at it. But looking at this, okay, we got a blog post, perfect. And you see here that the URL itself doesn't really say blog post, unfortunately. So there's a few things we're going to do here. So first off, let's actually start off with the new thing. Let's start off with how do we actually count the words, because that's really the point of this. I think figuring out whether or not this page is just a blog isn't overly difficult. I will show you how to do that, but I want to go over this formula. So when we're actually looking at this, it says string length, then this is actually just an input. This is not part of the formula. This is saying, let's grab the first div. We are going to update that. Then it's subtracting the string length of a translated value of the same div. And what this is actually doing is that the first part of it is counting the length, including including white space. And the second part is counting the length, excluding white space. And then what we're doing is we're just subtracting the two values from each other, and then we're using that to find the final word count. That was probably a lot to grasp, just hearing all that said verbally. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show 3 different extractions, and then we'll see, each different count. We'll subtract it in real time and see how that all works. So hopefully this will make sense by the end. And I, of course, will be sharing this formula and everything else. What is this gibberish? To me, even a few hours ago, this was gibberish, so don't worry. Maybe you're really good at XPaths. You're looking at me like this is simple. Why do you think it's gibberish? But to me, it's tough. It's new syntax to learn. And really the most influential thing is just always to know what you're doing when it comes down to it. Don't do this and be like, oh, Jason told me to put something here and then it works and it does so great. really look at these things, look up what they're doing, and try to understand what the function is actually doing. So if you want to create something of your own, you could go ahead and do those kind of things. That said, let's get going with this. Let's actually start with these two. So this is the count of the length of the strings, including the spaces, right? So what we'll actually do if we open up Screaming Frog, not user agent. We want to go to configuration, custom, extraction. So what we're going to want to do here is hit this add button. We'll paste this in, even though we are going to change it. It does look like this dot's in there from my sheet. It does say this is valid already, but this is not what we want. What we actually want is this thing called a function value. So you're going to want to use that. And that's going to allow us to use what's called an XPath function within this. And it'll do what we're kind of telling it to do. So this right here technically is an extraction. It is something that would be counting these strings within the first div of the page. And let's actually even see that before we do the full thing here. If we just grab this page right here, let's see, and I'm not even really sure what happens. I'm assuming it's going to pull some number. That number is going to be representative of the first div. It says 602. And please note that I'm on custom extraction up here. When you open up Screaming Frog, you'll be under this internal, or at least normally you'll be under internal. You have to come over here to custom extraction, and we see 602. So if we actually open this up, if we look at / div, and then the first one of those, that's right here. So it's counting everything. It seems like within the main nav. So it's going to be hard to kind of show that within here, but what it's probably doing, or seemingly doing, is counting everything within here and telling us that there is a total of 602 characters, whatever that may be. Regardless, if we take that one step further, what we really want to do is figure out the main content itself. So what we need to do is that we need to come down here and we need to figure out, well, what is actually wrapping the main content? I don't want to use the word node, even though that's kind of what it's called. What element on the page is wrapping it? So if you actually double click, I like doing this at the very, very start of the post. If you double click it, hit inspect, you'll not land on exactly what you want, but hopefully you'll be kind of near where you want, and easy enough. You can kind of just hover over things and see what is actually hovering over what we want. It seems to be a few things, and I do not yet know if this is the main content. This might still have the footer, might still have a right rail somewhere. I mean, main blog posts, I feel like I could be pretty confident that that is going to be what we need, but I don't know. So let's go to the bottom, and what I want to see is I want to hover over that again, and I want to see if it shows up on these bottom navs. So if we go main blog, it cuts off. It looks like it cuts off right here. So that one would work. This one would probably work as well, and this one would probably work. A few of these would work. Let's just go with this one up here. So we'll do the div at class, etc. So we'll want to go string length // I believe that was a div. Yes, it doesn't have to be a div. So if you come down to different areas, there might be a span tag. There's different tags there could be. It does not have to be a div. But we do have a div here. We're going to go open bracket. We're going to hit the @ sign, and then I'm going to just paste in what I just copied from in there. And I'm going to close the bracket right there. What did I do wrong? Why is this not a check? It is because there's an open parentheses. I need to close that. So this should work. I'm going to name this. I'm going to do count of characters, and this should work. But let's add a few more. So count words. Count, let's actually do without white. Count of words. And then there's going to be one more. There's going to be like is blog. And I actually don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I know it's very, very easy if you use what's called a custom search. but I'm actually going to go figure out, I'm sure there's a like count element XPath that we can figure out. So we'll just kind of do that together. So if we hop in here, what we could do, we have this right here. It should work. Probably should have tested it, but this should be fine. It's not going to work because this is a whole function. But if we drop this in there, just the XPath itself, we do see it's wrapping the entire page. If I didn't say this already, this is very important. You could test XPaths right here within the console. This is what I always do to ensure it is wrapping what I want it to be wrapping. As you just saw, you can't write full functions into there, at least to the best of my knowledge. When I had it like this, it wasn't working. There might be some nuance to allow you to do that. But to the best of my knowledge, you can't do that. Of course, let me know if I'm mistaken. Would love to find out if there was a way to do that, because that would make testing even easier. But from here, we have that right there. So that's the first part, right? And we want to do minus this second part. So all we're actually going to want to do is we're going to want to grab this. This is the XPath, right? It's grabbing the part of the page that we're interested in, which is the main content of the page. Sorry, my voice kind of broke out for a second. And then this is going to count it without white spaces. What we're doing right here is that we're translating. We are grabbing all of the white spaces within the main content of the pages, and we're replacing it with a blank. So then we're going to subtract the two from one another. Just a simple kind of subtraction right there. So this should work. What I'm going to want to do, I'm going to add this part into this right here, and then I'm going to add the entire function into this right here. And notice I haven't switched these yet, so these are all going to need to be function values. And here, before I kind of go on a wild goose chase, let's just verify that this all works. So start. Okay, so we have the count characters, we have the without white, and we have the final value. If we pull each of these, I mean, you wouldn't really do this. You would really just grab the white space, right, and kind of say that is true. I'm just trying to show you. If we grab these, if we put them in here, if we just actually subtract this from this, it should equal that final value. Perfect. So we do see these are equivalent. We're good there. Let's also just verify. Let's just grab a few of these and ensure this works on all of the pages, because the goal is going to be to do this at scale. There's Google Chrome extensions that we could do word count. We don't need to go through all of this trouble just to do it for one page. We want to do this at scale. So we do see it showing up for a lot, and it begs the question of, okay, what are these pages? Well, they're not blogs, right? And we could see that just by the fact that it's a 0. But what if it was a blog and there was just no text on the page? Then that's a really big quality issue. We want to get rid of that. We want to make some updates. So what we're going to want to do is actually write another part of this to make it a little bit more confusing, to actually identify whether or not it's a blog. So first off, what I want to tell you is there is a very, very easy way to do this, which I'll show you right now, which is if you just grab this, like anything on the page that is unique to a blog, meaning if I go to a non-blog, it is not in the code of that page. And I haven't double checked this, but I'm fairly confident main-blog posts is only going to be on blog posts. So I'm going to make an assumption there. If I was doing this for a client deliverable, I'd probably double check that. I feel very confident that that's only going to be on blogs, but again, it's always good to double check. But all y'all actually have to do is go custom search, and I have some other stuff in there right now, but we could just do, and this is just a name for it, contains, you know, this right here. And maybe we just go contains main blog equals this. I'm just giving it a name. And then you could actually choose a different thing. You could choose whether you want to look if it's contained in the full HTML, just the page, the HTML, meaning if it exists within here, well, actually, truly, it's within the source. This is the rendered DOM. If you want to be certain if it's a client-side rendered website, you're going to want to turn on JavaScript rendering or this isn't going to work. I could definitely show that in a future tutorial, but this is a server-side rendered website, I believe. We turn off JavaScript, everything's still loading there. So even if it is on a JavaScript framework, it is client, or it is server-side rendered. I don't think it's on a JavaScript framework though. Let's check using Wappalizer. Let's see what Screaming Frog is on. WordPress. Fun. PHP backend. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, we're doing a custom search. So just put that in there. We want to know if it's anywhere in the HTML, and then we'll feel good about the fact that it's a blog. So what I could do is I could run this, and then I could hop over to custom search, and it's actually just going to count every time it sees that. And then very easily here, we know which pages are blogs and which pages are not. So we see all of these pages are not blogs, and all the pages down here are blogs. There is one more issue with this. It's not an issue that's hard to solve. We could export both of these data sets. We could just line them up with a VLOOKUP, and then we could figure out, you know, if a page has no text and also is a blog. That said, I don't want to do that. I want to do this at all one time. I want it all in a single data set. So let's try that out. Let's go back to custom extraction. So we know we already have all of these. We could also clean this up a little bit. We could just delete these two. Let's just get the count of words. Main content. So count of words. And then what we're going to want to figure out is blog post. So what I really need here is something that looks for something and then potentially returns a true or false value, or it could return a 1, some kind of function like that. So all I normally do, I'm going to show you my process. It's no witchcraft. I go XPath resulting in true or false value. That's actually called a Boolean statement, which you see right there, a Boolean value. But again, try not to use jargon right now. And usually you could search these kind of things without jargon. Stack Overflow, your best friend. There's a ton of great answers in here. Always look for the ones with a little check mark next to it, meaning the person who wrote this question verified that this answer did work. And you also want to verify that the question actually matches what you're trying to do. So we see an XML document associated with a schema. We're trying to return a true or false. Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Let's see here. String attribute, describe a few alternatives. So if attribute, not sure. Let's try this out. So if it's true, I think at least what this is saying is if some attribute that you're going to define exists, meaning it's true, then return 1. But what I might do is I'll just grab this. I'll look up attribute XPath. See what we find here. So this selects an attribute, which is what I thought. So I'm gonna kind of go for this right now and say // div. So that's what we're looking for. And then if that exists, equals true 1. I'm really not sure about that syntax, but you know what? There's not too much risk to it. Okay, that's not even working right there. Let's probably because we have this whole thing. It's not just looking for the attribute. See what this looks like. Okay, that's still resulting in nothing there. At attribute true one. Let's check out a few more of these. Let's do if XPath exists, then true or false. Sure. Check out this one. Subject identifier. If the attached XPath encrypt or right pressure, then will turn true. Okay, so it's using Boolean. Let's try this out. Let's try Boolean div at class and close that. Cool. Maybe. It does have the check. It means the function is at least a valid function. Just because it's a valid function doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work as expected. But let's try it out. Just start this crawl again. And hopefully it works. Perfect. We got what we need. So we did this on a subset of the pages, right? We could do this on more. Let's see, there's 207 of them. I don't want to take up everyone's entire night, so let's just download these and let's run a little analysis. Let's see